Hello everyone, I'm Benjamin Kier. Welcome back to the Benjamin Kier Show. We're wrapping up an amazing summer in sports. So many free agency moves, so many almost moves and almost trades. There's a lot of moving parts. I, like many across the sports broadcasting industry, took a much needed break. But now we're back and I've got some great news. We have football every week until February. That's right, the NFL is back. College football will be back soon enough. And there are some very interesting storylines heading into this NFL season. Some that we'll cover today, and some that we'll discuss in the weeks to come. This is going to be our first full football season on the Benjamin Kier Show. So I'm excited about that. The week-to-week updates, going through all these storylines. Heads up to all my sports fans, this show will be 70% football over the next 6 months, and at least 50% NFL talk. To me, it's the most wonderful time of the year. It's only going to get better, and you can only get the best breakdowns here on this show. Without further ado, let's kick off the action with some Cowboys questions. The Dallas Cowboys have been at the center of some very important roster changes since last season's underwhelming conclusion. Let's be honest. The Cowboys led the league in total offense. Their defense was top tier. The cherry on top, the stat that everybody paid attention to, was the defense, the 26 interceptions. But going into the season, things just aren't the same. There have been some notable changes to the roster. Some talent is simply no longer with the team. The most obvious is Amari Cooper. Last year, the Cowboys receiving corps was on the up and up. Amari Cooper was labeled as the number one wide receiver, and he was followed in the depth chart by CeeDee Lamb. Now, that was a great 1-2 punch that was the real catalyst for Dallas' success on the offensive side of the field. Add Dalton Schultz, Michael Gallup, and even Tony Pollard to that mix. That is an elite pool of pass catchers. Of course, the beneficiary of that receiving room was Dak Prescott. But things are going to be different this year. Amari Cooper is now a Cleveland Brown, and that's a tough loss for the Cowboys. Now, the Cowboys aren't worried about the number one spot. They're not worried about that hole. That's already been filled by CeeDee Lamb. In that right, Dallas is very, very lucky. Some may even say that this is the result of strategy and not luck. Dallas grabbed an elite pass catcher in CeeDee Lamb when it wasn't absolutely necessary. But now they need someone to step up, and they've already got their guy. Truthfully, CeeDee Lamb could have been the first option on most NFL teams from the day he walked into the building. So that's not the problem. Dallas has their one. But what's next? Who is next? Let's take a look at last season, and I'm going to combine the receiving stats of 3 Cowboys. Together, in 2021, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, and Cedric Wilson Jr. combined for 148 receptions, 1,912 receiving yards, and 16 touchdowns. Some of you may be thinking, okay, Ben, you're combining stats. Those numbers aren't as big as they seem. You're combining 3 guys. Well, do you know who does look at the numbers like that? Do you know who pays attention to that? Dak Prescott. The offense runs through him. And without those guys last season, he loses 148 completions. He throws 1,912 fewer yards. And he throws 16 less touchdowns. Yeah, that matters to him. Amari Cooper, gone. He's been traded. Michael Gallup, unavailable. He tore his ACL last season. He's expected to be gone until September at least. And knowing how valuable he'll be this season, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't rush his return. I wouldn't either. Next, Cedric Wilson Jr. He's no longer in the team. The Cowboys lost him to the Dolphins in free agency. The Cowboys are going to look towards less obvious talent to fill the pass catchers unit and will not be as pretty or as fun or as energetic as it was last season. An excess in talent can hide a lot of holes. It can disguise your weaknesses. And in some cases, it can postpone Judgment Day. After CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz, the Cowboys receiving corps drops off into the unknown. Dak will be forced to go from a game manager to a game changer. And truthfully, he should be able to handle that switch. The Cowboys gave Dak Prescott the reins to the most valuable franchise in the world. They gave him a 4-year, $160 million extension, even with the lingering questions about his health. Dallas was in a tight spot with cap restraints at the end of last season. We knew there was going to be a talent drain going into the 2022 season. And Dak, in the midst of all of that, is expected to not only survive, but thrive. And he should. He's going to have to play better football. He's going to have to run more than he did last season. He's going to have to get creative. He's going to have to stretch the field. And although he will rely on him, Dak should not rely on Ezekiel Elliott to save him in the backfield. Zeke has regressed in every season since that monster contract, and there's not going to be a sudden or miraculous resurrection in the backfield. The team will continue to use him at running back one because they need to recover some of the value from that contract, but Zeke is not going to help them in that regard. There's no underlying incentive that's strong enough to force Zeke back into his former glory. In conclusion, Dak Prescott will have to do more with less, but in a very winnable division. He has to be the clear leader of this team, not the defense, not the offense as a whole. He, as an individual, has to rise above it all and show that he is the leader, undisputedly so. Otherwise, it's going to be a rocky ship in Dallas. There's been a lot of talk surrounding the Patriots this offseason. Bill Belichick has refused to name an offensive coordinator, at least publicly. There have been rumblings of a total revamp of the strategy, an introduction of a new game plan, a new scheme. At the center of all of that is Bill Belichick. And the media coverage of New England has been very fair. Maybe a bit much so. Get ready, because this one's going to be hot. This is going to be one of those hot take days. What Bill Belichick is doing right now should not be considered part of his smarts. It's not genius. It's dysfunctional. It's disorganized. It's holding on to something that simply no longer exists. Over time, Bill Belichick's personality has rubbed off on his coaching staff. Stick with me for this one. They share a lot of the same traits. When those guys on his staff leave because they're heading to a new head coaching job or they won a job opening as a coordinator on another team, they take their personality with them. They take what their teacher has taught them. One of the Belichick coaching tree personality traits that consistently comes up as an issue is arrogance. Guys who think they can do it their way. Guys who don't concede, who don't ask for help. It's been a problem. They do not take the advice of those around them. That's why a lot of these coaches from Belichick's coaching tree have failed. They've been forced to leave that new job and come back to the Patriots to work under Bill. Parents' personalities live on through their kids. Teachers' lessons are embedded into their students in the classroom. And Bill Belichick's arrogance is ingrained into his coordinators. The problem with a trait like arrogance is it's a long fall down. Because even if someone saw the situation and tried to help you out, tried to assist you, they wouldn't be able to. You'd be too stubborn to recognize the flaw in your ways. Everyone knows Belichick's priority and focus as a head coach. That's no secret. Bill Belichick is a defensive head coach who thinks the game plan that he had in the late 2000s will work in the NFL in 2022. And that's horribly, horribly wrong. If you don't think Bill Belichick is looking at Brady thinking, he's succeeding, why am I not winning? Then you really don't know Belichick at all. He is living in the past. He has been so incredibly successful using his way to win that he doesn't realize how much the world has changed since he first got there. Coach, this is not a hard read. The league is hiring offensive coordinators as head coaches. Teams are paying weapons and quarterbacks top of the market money. They're signing them to monster extensions, the ones that you've refused to extend to your own weapons in the past. This is simply not the same league. You're not winning a Super Bowl with Chris Hogan and Danny Amendola. No disrespect to those guys, but they're not Cooper Kupp and Odell Beckham Jr. They're not Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Ben, that's unfair. You're talking about the greatest coach of all time. Trust the process a little. Ben, you're wrong. The Patriots are spending $70 million on weapons. Number one, I do not have to trust a broken process. And on the spending point, yeah, you're right. On the surface, the Pats are spending $70 million on offense. But dig a little deeper. $50 million is going to the tight ends. What modern, presently succeeding offense is doing that? None. Because that's ridiculous. Yes, modern NFL consensus says, if you're not paying your quarterback yet, go out and get weapons. Splurge on the offense. But the league also agrees on who is most valuable, what is most important. For the most part, analysts and winning coaches agree. Wide receivers and interior offensive linemen. Load up on those guys while you have your quarterback on a rookie contract and you're not paying him. Bill Belichick got his rookie quarterback, signed him to the rookie deal. He committed to spending on offense, but then he gave massive contracts to Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith. It's almost like Bill Belichick was following the instructions of a recipe on the side of a pancake box, and everything was going dandy. Pour milk into the bowl. Crack 2 eggs. But then he said, it says a pinch of salt, but I'm going to put a cup. I mean, Bill Belichick may have never wanted to follow the line leader since he's always believed he was the line leader. But for his own sake, and for the sake of the team which he runs, he better get in line, or at least start. You can't put Matt Patricia, a defensive coach, in the position of offensive coordinator for a young quarterback like Mac Jones. It'll kill his development. And Mac Jones knows that. That's why the reports of Mac Jones struggling in camp are out. That's why the leaks that Mac Jones is uncomfortable with the Patriots' approach are taking over headlines. But we're also hearing reports that the defense looks solid. We're reading all over the place that Bill Belichick is focusing his efforts on the defense. Offense, not so much. But the defensive unit, oh boy, they're looking good. This is a recipe for disaster. The Patriots cannot afford to be timid or unsure going into the season. For the first time ever, the Patriots have not one, but 2 competitors in their own division. Bill Belichick hasn't been able to force the Buffalo Bills to punt, much less beat them in a game with normal weather conditions in 2 years. The Bills are 1A, 1B with the Chiefs in the AFC. That means they're competing for a spot in the Super Bowl. But now, for the first time in my lifetime, New England also has to worry about Miami. That's right, the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins, like the Patriots, have struggled in recent years. They've been victims of a changing landscape across the league. Here's the difference. You know how the Dolphins address their weaknesses? They replaced a defensive head coach, by the way, a Belichick coach. They replaced him with a young, modern, offensive-minded head coach in Mike McDaniel. Miami traded massive assets and value in the future in return for a superstar in Tyreek Hill. Miami, who is not spending on their quarterback yet, is spending huge money on that weapon, who is a wide receiver. But they weren't done. They also got additional offensive support. They got as much talent as possible, including, by the way, Cedric Wilson Jr., who I mentioned in my previous story. The Dolphins surrounded their young quarterback with an offensive-minded coach and all the offensive talent in the world. Because the Dolphins know that in 2022, you can't go cheap on your offense. They don't offer any discounts for winners. Bill Belichick has to wake up. He has to smell the coffee. If Bill Belichick wants a genuine chance at winning without Tom Brady, because that is what this is about, don't think for a second it's not, then he's going to have to change his ways. He's going to have to adapt and concede. Because under his current style of leadership, under his current approach, his mentality, and everything else that Bill Belichick brings to the table, the Patriots will not make the playoffs. Whenever there's an opportunity to do so, I love to cover the sports business world. There are constantly industry-shaping deals that are being made for the future of sports, and it looks brighter and brighter each and every day. The Denver Broncos sale to the Walton family was just approved for a record-breaking $4.6 billion. The Broncos are now the richest ownership group in the NFL, and they also represent the most diverse staff in NFL history. The ownership group includes the Walton family heir, Rob Walton, who owns Walmart, the former Secretary of State, the 7-time Formula One champion, Lewis Hamilton, and the co-CEO of Ariel Investments and Starbucks chair, Melody Hobson, just to name a few. There are some great headlines a very diverse group, that's something cool that you should celebrate. That's an achievement as a sports fan. There was also some more revolutionary business in the sports world earlier this week. On Monday, internet superstar turned professional boxer Jake Paul announced his new business venture, Betr. Spelled B-E-T-R, this new company combines two of the fastest growing components of sports, media and gambling. The company is co-founded by his partner and the Betr CEO, Joey Levy. Together, they raised $50 million from some of the biggest names in the sports and entertainment world. Their investors include Travis Scott, Ezekiel Elliott, Richard Sherman, Des Bryant, and the co-owners of the 49ers, Celtics, and our own Miami Marlins. The media arm of the business kicks off today with the first episode of Jake Paul's weekly sports show, BS, with Jake Paul. From what we've seen, it looks like the show will be hosted by him and co-hosted by model Julia Rose and former NFL athlete D-Cut. I'm really excited to watch the show. It'll probably be out by the time this episode's out. I can't wait to watch you guys get to work. You can follow them on social media. Their handle is @BETR. Once again, that's BETR. And stay tuned for the mobile app's release. Speaking of social media, the Benjamin Cure Show officially has its own social media pages. Maybe you noticed it yesterday in the later hours of the day. You can now follow @BenCureShow on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. I made sure the username was the same across the board, very easy to remember and search. I'll be posting clips of the projects and the episodes there so that you can make sure to follow those pages. Next up, tonight we've got some preseason games in the NFL. First up, Giants versus Patriots at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Next on deck, Titans versus Ravens at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Of course, we can expect minimal action from the starters. You don't want to injure those guys, but we are nonetheless excited. Football is back, and so are we. With that, we can conclude this episode of the Benjamin Cure Show. Make sure to like, subscribe, share it with your friends. You can now follow us on social media, so engage there as well. Until next time, I'm Benjamin Cure. You're watching the Benjamin Cure Show. Take care, everyone.